Hey everybody, welcome to Visual Novel Book Club, episode 11. I'm your pal Slowbeef. With me is everybody else who's been in the past 10 episodes. Say hi!
Hi.
Hello!
Nice. When we last saw our intrepid heroes, we were on the final route of Ever 17. We've been jumping back and forth between Takeshi and Kid's stories. You had a heart attack, apparently, or something like that, and she was talking about Rip Van Winkle. Then we jumped to Kid's timeline, and he exclaims, Rip Van Winkle did exist right in the Lemurian ruins. Divac, take it away!
And he's right there with the other you, Fall You, who is there to reprimand him for being foolish, which really underscores the difference between the two yous, I think. She's immediately like, that's stupid, I can't believe that you would think that, none of this is real, because she's the skeptical one.
Right.
And they have a conversation about, he says, that he's remembered everything, just like in the Mayo route. Kid has remembered everything about Sarah, but just not the last few years. He also hasn't remembered his name. And finally, in this case, you is like, what do you mean? You don't remember your name? You didn't ask Mayo what your name is? Are you insane?
That was, the moment where, that was my favorite you moment of, I think, the game, because it's just like,
it's same, but like, I'm sitting here, like, looking at my notes, and it says, he hasn't asked Mayo what his name is, there we go, idiot, and, oh my god, so, yeah, he hasn't, and he's like, oh, well, it didn't come up, it's not important, and you doesn't buy that at all, and I don't either.
Yeah, and then he starts launching into his, like, fucking DeviantArt, like, logs or whatever, and he just starts reading, like, a name doesn't really matter, man. It's like, dolphins. And I'm like, Lisa Frank fucking book cover ass motherfucker, shut up and sit down. We're asking your name. Like, it was just so
He's
bad.
really, really stretching things. Yeah, he talks about how, like, dolphins don't use names, and this was all stuff to, like, for him to cope with the fact that he didn't remember anything, but now it's just getting ridiculous.
It needs to be said that, as he's going off on this rant, you is basically just walking away from him, going to Mayo to ask what his name is.
Yeah.
That's right, she literally just walks away. But she does say, my name is Yubisei Akikana, and he's like, no, it's not. Your name is Yubisei Harukana. And she's like, no, it's not. I was born in September, and Aki means fall, and so it's Aki, not Haru. And he's like, no, that can't be.
And she's like, you'd think I'd know my own name, which is a good point, honestly.
And she's like, I have a complex about my name. Like, of course, this is what it is. I'm not making that up. So, in case we didn't figure it out yet, that they have two different names. They're Spring and Fall. And the one with Kid is Fall, and the one with Takeshi is Spring. So then they meet up with Mayo, and and there's this big reveal of what is Kid's name. Finally, we've made it.
Although, just to jump in, Kid at one point thinks this will probably be a lot easier if I faint.
Yeah.
Can I play the fainting card, or is that too much?
So at first she says it, and it just shows up as blank. Like we don't see it. And he, like, loses it, doesn't hear any words, he blacks out, and he does the same thing where he saw an illusory other kid on the stairwell, where he hears another voice saying, who are you? Who am I? So he has this dissociation again, and we come back and we hear that old kid's name is, I guess, Hokuto.
Hokuto.
And so that is Sarah's brother's name. Sarah's brother's name is Hokuto.
And it's Japanese for idiot, also.
And of course, Kid, in classic Kid fashion, or Hokuto, looks at his fucking hand again because he doesn't feel like any of this fits him. He's waiting for his sixth finger. We have the whole spiel again. So, he doesn't feel that he's entirely Hokuto. And at that moment, we perspective switch to the scene where Takeshi and Tsugumi have rescued Chami, and she's showing him Chami, and Takeshi asks, is that really his name? Talking about Chami.
Right. That's how they do the transition, because it's like, Hokuto, is that really? And then it's like, It's doing this kind of annoying thing that you see. I feel like I've seen in TV before, where it's like one person's phrase gets kind of completed in the smash cut to the next scene type
They
of
do
deal.
that a lot in Full House.
They do it a lot in Bold and the Beautiful, which my parents watch.
That wasn't even a joke, but it was funny. I'm sorry. If they do it in The Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah, look, one of the things about living with my parents is that now I watch Bold and the Beautiful during the week, and it's hilarious. It's great and hilarious. And they do that a lot. It's great. Anyway.
All right.
Also, it's
The
filmed in
soaps that
Los
still
Angeles,
exist are
so
fucking
memories.
hilarious, so that's true.
They're wild. They they can do whatever they want.
Is Ever 17 kind of like an anime soap opera then, or?
Oh god, yeah.
100%.
It has a lot
yeah,
of
definitely.
mistaken identity, a lot of this like false drama of just like withholding information. Absolutely.
Yeah. Although to be fair, also is wrestling.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
Yes, the two forms of human entertainment known since Greek times: wrestling
yes.
and TV drama soap operas. That's it.
Oh
Everything
yes,
is
boy
one of
anime and
That's
girl
legitimately
anime.
true.
It is. It's like wrestling is just soap operas for guys.
but
that are
but dating back to
uncomfortable
Greek
soap
times, I
operas.
mean, we can't make it more obvious.
So you may have noticed this whole time we didn't find out what happened to you. You who had a heart attack and had to go to the infirmary. Well, maybe not a heart attack, but she had some kind of thing happen to her. So we've switched back to Takeshi, and we just switched to the scene with Sugumi, and Takeshi just sort of like offhandedly is like, oh yeah, I brought you to the infirmary. She wouldn't tell me any details about what was wrong with her or what was going on, but she just sat there for an hour and then she was okay. So that whole cliffhanger just resolves into nothing. Just like, oh, she's fine. Don't worry about it.
I don't remember that happening the first time around Takeshi's route either. Am I crazy there?
No, it was just this time.
All right.
Which also kind of like, I don't know, we'll get to it, I guess, more later, but it seems like kind of one of those things where it's like, this information was just withheld from us for the previous part of the game, and that's a little bit weak, I think a weakness in the writing, that was just withheld for no reason.
Hey, speaking of writing, you know what else we learned? What characters make up Sugumi's name? I know.
I know, it's exciting, right?
Yep, it's Sue, written like Satellite of the Earth, which I don't know why they say that when it's, Moon, right.
You mean the moon? That classic satellite? You know it. You love it. It's the moon. Everyone's favorite. Gotta love it.
And Gumi, which is,
like water.
I thought ocean, yeah.
Moon ocean.
Umi,
Yeah.
Yeah, so her name means Moon Ocean.
Yeah.
So we got people from the sun, we got people from the moon. What's going on?
We got Sugumi from
And
the
then-
Moon Ocean. Remember that for later.
All right then. And then all of a sudden, here comes Coco, and she just starts calling Takeshi and Sugumi daddy and mommy.
God, fucking Coco.
And they didn't know about it, so they look at each other and they're like, she calls you daddy? She calls you mommy? Oh, God.
Ah, God, we got a kid running shipping charts in the fucking Lemmy. God damn it.
And she says something like, a girl who doesn't have a mommy or daddy can call whoever she wants. It's like written in the knuckle tablet.
Yeah.
Which
that's
is some...
that was another thing from that guy that studied the lost continent of Mu. But if you look it up on Wikipedia, it is spelled wrong in the game, and I don't know if that's on purpose or not. But I don't know how you would pronounce it.
I'd
like
say it's
Mikhail
spelled
or
correctly.
Naakal.
This translation has proven to be very accurate and completely trustworthy.
So it's that same guy. So she's referencing the guy who studied the lost continent of Mu, which she would know about, I guess, because her dad was a researcher. And and Coco is like, I don't know, the entire plot. But she's just inhibited by her personality.
Gotta be
And so
wacky.
then Takeshi leaves them after the whole mommy daddy thing. He's like, okay, I'm out. And he goes to the security room to check up on you, and because I guess he still was probably like, what's going on with this girl? She thanks him, but she's being real cagey. And she's like, oh, it happens all, why does it happen all the time? And Yu speaks abstractly about how so Yu is trying to hack the password again.
Right.
Yu speaks abstractly about how she won't get to see her dad because she's running out of time and has reached her limit. So I think at this point we can guess what's wrong. Takeshi presses her on it, and she's like, I can't tell you about this because then I'll start talking about stuff I don't want to talk about. And then Yu asks Takeshi if he has ever sinned, and we get a choice.
Oh yeah, yes or no.
I said yes.
I said no.
What happens when you Ty? He's gone.
Oh, me? Oh, I said yes. Sorry, no,
okay.
I was just trying to think, like, we kind of blew past it, but the whole Coco plot dump speech at first, it's very much like if, like, Lucky from Waiting for Godot was written by a really bad anime writer, probably translator as well. It's just super wandery, right?
Yep.
Like, that was severe for everybody, too, like, more so than normal.
It's frustrating every time Coco speaks.
Yeah.
I don't like Coco.
The character that you hate, you don't know why they're there, turns out to be there for a really important reason, and you don't really like it.
All right, so I know a lot of you dorks listening to this at home probably also like video games. So, like, basically imagine if, like, Navi from fucking Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time also was just the exposition character all of a sudden. Out of nowhere. It's the
but also
worst.
couldn't, like, just tell you what was going on because she's too much of a precocious anime stereotype.
What if
Right.
Pikachu was the narrator? Who was dealt with
Okay, that's more
exposition?
accurate. Yeah, that's actually really close, yeah.
It reminds me of, actually, what's that race in Vampire the Masquerade that is, like, if you play as them in the video game, then they, like, spoil the plot for you?
Yeah, the ones who are, like, they're basically psychic, but because of that, they're completely batshit crazy.
Yeah, that's what Coco is.
Yeah, basically.
So if you have Takeshi answer that he has sinned, then he just kind of, like, generally describes theoretical sin. Like, he's just like, yeah, I'm sure I did something that was bad, which is really, like, I'm disappointed. I really wanted to hear what Takeshi had done.
Yeah, the way you presents it is like, look, have you ever done something so unspeakable, so terrible that you know you will never ever be able to take it back and you will have to live for it with the rest of your life? Yeah, sure.
I smoked a blunt
think
once.
so.
Like, shut up, man. Like, what did you do?
Oh man.
Yeah.
What does he say if you say no?
He just says, not really, and then she goes, well, that's admirable, and then she moves on with her explanation.
Oh, okay. Well, good for you. Mr.
So you has
Perfect.
some interesting dialogue here where she talks about, like you said, that she, like, crossed a line that should never have been crossed. And she speaks abstractly, and then she says specifically, "You might be mad at me." And I think that it's interesting because, I mean, she's about to say exactly what happened, but at that point it's like, oh, she must be talking about the other you. That you might be mad at me because doesn't care if Takeshi's mad at her.
Right.
And she says she only did it this way so only she would be punished, and then this other she has no sin to carry on. And Yu takes the coffee she was drinking and pours it onto the ground. She pours one out for her clone, Fall Yu. So I've been calling them in my notes Spring Yu and Fall Yu. Mm-hmm. And so that's them. So she says, she initially says that Fall Yu is her twin sister.
You listen to me, you fucking gaijin. That's Haru Yu and Aki Yu, okay? And maybe Anada if we want. All right, I'm sorry.
But not the whole name because we'll never be able to say it
That's
over and over.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
So at that moment, there's a perspective switch back to Kid and Fall Yu. Talking about how he and Sarah are twins, and
isn't that transaction happen though because Fall Yu specifically says like she's my twin sister?
Yeah.
and then that's how it kind of switches
Yes,
over.
Spring You says it. Yeah, the older one.
Oh, I'm sorry,
the first
Spring You,
one.
Spring You,
Spring
right.
You says,
Right.
She's my twin sister. And then we cut
Gotcha.
to Kid and Fall You talking about how he and Sarah are twins. So
Gotcha.
Yu is surprised that Hokuto and Sarah do not have the same talents, basically. She's like, your sister's good at computers, why aren't you also good at computers? Which, God, anyone who is a younger sibling out there, I'm sorry. Because it reminds me of my own youth.
How
So...
come you aren't both blonde?
like, just... what? But he's like, no, like, we're fraternal twins, like, and also, why would we have the same talents anyway, like, ever?
I feel like if this was the other way around and she were asking, or I mean, he were asking, like, you'd have some choice, like, fraternal twins, and then you'd have to, if you said, like, explain those to me, that's when he would be like, well, shouldn't you be, like, that seems like more of a kid thing to do, but at any rate, just wanted to interject with that, but then, and then he goes into the whole biology behind fraternal twins, right?
Yeah, oh my god,
Which
who cares?
is, I know, it's just like a
you know how
paragraph of
fraternal
words
twins,
for no
right?
reason.
You know how they work.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah.
We
You're
got lots.
telling
We got
me
lots to
you're
get through today. We got to push
I
this.
think we're all...
out of the vagina at the same time.
I feel like at
I
this
don't
point
get
in
it.
our lives,
You
we probably...
at the same time.
Have you seen a Gatling gun before?
Why can't they just both be the same person, only one of them has a bow on their head?
I don't get it. This is terrible.
2 out of 10.
God. So what do they talk about? There's a flashback to Sora saying the whole thing about how Yuki Yu's mom, Spring Yu's mom, but Fall Yu also thinks that is her mom. That Yuki Tanaka died 15 years ago, and Yoichi Tanaka died 17 years ago. And
Right.
so Fall Yu is really confused because she's like, no, my mom's still alive, but now we know that this quote-unquote mom is really Spring Yu.
We do? We know that right now?
That's basically the situation, right? Because she says, that this, she says, yeah, I think so. We don't know how, we don't know exactly
don't know
how
yet.
Spring Yu was created.
Okay.
But we
Not
know that
quite.
she was created by Fall Yu.
Okay.
And so, Yu is kind of talking nonsense, and Kid attributes this to trauma from the news. So yeah, Yu's kind of speaking abstractly. She goes through this the same in Kid's path. Let's see. Kid hems and haws about his name again. Yu has a moment of clarity about the password. And then she kisses him on the cheek, which I think happens in the other thing. The whole thing, she figures it out that the name Yuki Tanaka is the part that's wrong, not the password.
Right.
Yep.
And so she decides that she's going to go ask Sora for like the records or something like that to try to figure out what her quote unquote mom's real name is.
That's right.
And before Kid, then they're in the Lemurian ruins. Yu leaves, and before Kid leaves, he repeats that haiku, that's the password, over and over. And he sees like a glowing red light, I guess infravision, of a woman standing in the darkness. And she says Hokuto, and she says a version of the haiku with Hokuto's name in it, and it's Coco. Coco's in the ruins.
Of course she is.
It's like something, it brings a chill to Hokuto, I guess, instead of me. I don't remember exactly what she says. But it's not important. So we perspective switch then to Takeshi listening to Coco say the poem in the ruins. So Kid and Takeshi are in the same place right now, I guess. It's both talking to Coco at the same time. Takeshi questions her about why she said that poem out loud, and she says, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to a life form from another dimension. And she says, and she's talking to Takeshi, and she's like, well, Takeshi, let's play Inchworm. And he's like, no, I'm not falling for this again. We're not going through this.
That's right.
Like, fuck
And
no,
he's
I'm
like,
not in this fucking water on the floor.
and she like woke him up in a really awful way again. She put mustard in his nose, and so then the mustard starts to come out, and he's like, oh, my brain is melting.
Oh yeah, that was
It's just awful, all of it. And
yeah, Coco is just like we went through that.
Like,
but-
she oscillates
being really
between
mean to
actual
him.
plot dumpy stuff and then just complete nonsense fluff.
Yes.
But, like,
like,
She's
you
the second
couldn't-
worst.
You couldn't shove mustard up somebody's nose to wake them up and have them just like be fine for most of the day, and then it dribbles out, and then it's, oh, I had mustard in my sinus cavity this whole time. What a world! Like, you know, I mean,
Never saw that one coming. Mustard up my own nose.
Just one of those days, guys.
just one of those days.
I think Takeshi's having a bad time. And so he's like, no, we're not playing this game anymore. You're gonna go to sleep. And Coco's like, sing me a lullaby. She recites the entire Moon Lullaby, both of the what's it called? Both of the verses of the Moon Lullaby.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what? Like, I don't know how to say, I don't know the words. And so she sings it to him, and then she says that her mommy, Sugumi, would sing it to her. So Sugumi taught Coco the lullaby.
The Moon and Ocean Lullaby.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So her mother's, well, yeah.
So then we switch perspectives to Coco telling Hokuto the same thing. So, and she's like, and she calls him Hokutan. She says, Hokutan, you're confused. Does that mean the real you poked his face out for a second? So she's sort of speaking to this duality that there's somebody else inside Hokuto.
Oh, right.
And gotta speaking to us too, because she's kind of like just telling us, like, holy shit, guys, this is gonna get real now.
Yeah, I am wondering with that, like, are we playing this entity or are we playing ourselves, the player? But that seems like a little too meta for the way this story is going. But I don't know, maybe it is. And so Coco basically explains to Hokuto, or to Kid, that Mayo could have taught Sugumi the lullaby, and then Sugumi taught it to her.
Right.
Which would be this crisscross across the two paths.
Yeah, and like as a preface to that, she kind of comes out and says, you know about the worlds, you know about the world where I exist and the one where I don't exist.
Well, the thing is that she's like, when she gives him that, like, maybe Mayo could have taught it to Sugumi, or, you know, and then Sugumi taught it to me. But Kid jumps in with, that's not possible. And she's like, why? And he's like, 'cause... And she's like, you can't answer that, right?
Yep.
Which I think it gets in. This is where Coco suddenly is not annoying for a minute. And then she just kind of goes like, I'll just answer for you. You see, Hokutan, you know that Mayo doesn't exist in the world I live in.
Yep.
And that's the kind of mic drop moment. And it's like she's kind of like going like you know this, like deep down, you know, that there's these two worlds and you know what I mean, like I'm trying to remember now, and then looking through it again. But
I'll be honest. As soon as these lines started being delivered, I had a very much "oh, don't do this" moment, because I've just I had my fill of winking at the player, gonna break the fourth wall. I was like, "Come on, stop, please, be more creative." No, I was
so
real
Coco
worried,
loses her like childlike wonder in this moment as well, where she's like, you know what this is and I know what this is. She says that she knows everything because she has ESP, and she sort of describes it in that same way that we've been hearing the third eye and the fourth dimension described the entire time. Although I believe she says it as like, I borrowed the sight of someone else.
Yeah.
And she's trying to get Kid to realize that they're the same. She's like, I'm the same as you. That's why I know about the world you live in and the world that I live in. And she encourages Kid not to lie to himself anymore. And so basically to like go with his intuition on all of these things. And then he says, "Why are you doing this?" And she says, "Because I wanted to see you again."
That's right. She's been waiting all by herself.
And that's really, really interesting because, for what we know, Hokuto is not in Koko's dimension. So how do they know each other?
Yep. And she also tests him too with the whole pee-pee thing. She's like, "Oh, my cat pee-pee."
Right.
And he's like, "That's
Says
not
it.
right."
What? That's not right.
He straight up
He's a
bites
dog.
him,
That great plot thread resolution. I'm glad we finally settled the score on PP. I'm sorry, I'm 12.
Hey, whenever you want to quiz someone on PP, you always want them to get the wrong answer. Like, that's not the right PP. You got that wrong.
Koko tells him then that the dream about Tsugumi being injured, that really happened, which we know. And then she disappears and Kid passes out in true Kid fashion.
Of course.
And then we switch.
And
We
we're
switch back to Takeshi, who is telling
again
himself,
talking to Coco.
Yeah, Takeshi's like, "Pull yourself together, Takeshi."
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the souvenir shop. And Coco is playing with like a bunch of stuffed toys from the souvenir shop. And it's just nonsense. We're like back to nonsense. She's like, "What if dolphins were salmon roe? I opened up a salmon and a bunch of dolphins came out. What if a dolphin was a corpse? Oh, I'm here to see my dead husband. Oh, there's a dolphin in the coffin. Oh no." Like, it's really strange.
Although, out of that entire thing, that she did do another American joke that I thought I liked it.
Do you want to relay it to us? Because I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I'm tired.
Go
Yeah.
with
I know what
Do
it
it,
is.
Noah.
Yeah.
So the gist of it is there's this doctor and this nurse that are both madly in love with each other, and the doctor always stood on the left side of the room and the nurse always stood on the right side of the room. And she goes into this like really risque kind of play, like the nurse takes her clothes off and the doctor takes his clothes off, and they both turn the lights off, and then they both get into bed and fall asleep because they were both at their house, at their own homes.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's the exact plot from every episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Right? And this game also, Takeshi, like, at first is like, it was a long and unfunny joke, and you think that Takeshi is going to spare us the joke, and then he says, "Now I'm going to inflict this joke on you," and he retells it to us.
Much the way I just did.
Oh my god. And so while all this is happening, Takeshi, like, is reflecting on how he's, like, weirdly drawn to Coco, and, like, he finds it hard to panic that he's gonna die soon in Lemieux when Coco is there, and being around Coco is like being in a dream. He does also reflect on how Coco is supposed to be 14, even though she acts like a little kid. And so he's like, this is like being in a dream, and at that moment, we perspective switch back to Kid, who is dreaming.
Right.
And he has a dream like similar to the same kind of dreams that they've been having and that Kid has been having, where we're like, is he in the pod? Where he feels like he's plastered up in thick walls and can only move his eyes. He feels like he needs to escape the walls, and he pushes his face through the wall, and then he wakes up. So, like, similarly, when Coco was like, "Oh, your face peeked through" in that moment.
Did we go through a thing, too, where she kind of says that dream you had wasn't a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah, she says that, yeah. About Tsugumi,
okay.
yeah. So,
Right.
after that...
Oh, that's right. That's right, sorry.
So on that note, so he decides to figure out where Tsugumi is to confirm if she was really injured or not. He goes to the security room where I think Tsugumi and Sora are talking, and he just like goes up to Tsugumi and like pulls her skirt up to look at her thigh. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "What?" And he sees a faint scar where her injury was in the other timeline. And she, like, slaps him or something, and he's like, "What? How'd you get that scar?" And she's like, she's like about to explain it, or she seems like she's going to explain it, and then we perspective switch again to Takeshi and the scene where he's trapped in the or not trapped in the gondola, but he's in the gondola with Tsugumi.
Right.
And she's gonna kill him, and it's I guess there's another part, the part which we wonderfully get to experience again, where Takeshi's like, oh, I can kind of see up Tsugumi's skirt because of the way she's sitting, and
right.
why do we need so many perv breaks in this game?
It was a little weird that time. But that was definitely deep diving.
Yeah, like, come on. And it's so weird too, because like it's not in the art, so it's just like flavor on top of it.
Just use your imagination.
Tsugumi is talking about having the cure virus, and she said that after her cells turned over, because we heard before that it takes 5 years for them to totally replace themselves, then she's a new species, the cure species, and that they are considered a subspecies of human beings. And big reveal, the cure species has infrared vision. So Tsugumi also has infrared vision.
Yep.
Who else did at this point? Mayo and you and Kid.
Yeah.
So Mayo and Hokuto have also have infrared vision, which they allegedly inherited from genetically. So. Also, the cure species are vulnerable to ultraviolet rays and can only travel at night.
So literally vampires.
They're vampires.
They're vampires. I concede.
Vampire anime. And then Takeshi and Tsugumi fucked in the gondola.
Straight up.
Well, they didn't quite put it like that. They put it a little more artistically, but yeah, they totally did.
Fucked in the gondola.
They became one via
like, okay, I'm just gonna skip ahead here just a second because I don't want there to be any misconception from the audience. Tsugumi got pregnant from this. They fucked in the jellyfish.
It was a real Juno type situation. Just first time, one shot, completely pregnant all the way.
One shot again.
Takeshi never misses.
Pregnant.
It's like
Damn,
your mom
Takeshi.
said, like, watch out for that guy. He's gonna one shot you.
And so they fucked in the gondola. So, you know, we can assume at this point, you know, we have enough evidence that to say that Sarah and Hokuto are Tsugumi and Takeshi's children. And we can also go back to talking about the pendant with the infrared light in it. So Tsugumi is like, oh, she says that she carries around an infrared laser to use as a flashlight. So that's the pen click that she's been clicking, and why no one else could see it, but she could because she has infrared vision. And at that moment, Tsugumi's like, hold on, and she takes out said mirror pendant and burns Takeshi's image onto the pendant with the infrared flashlight, which would probably also explain why Tsugumi in Kid's timeline stole the pendant from Mayo.
Right.
She wanted to look at it again. So we know now that the image of Sarah and Hokuto's father that is in the pendant is Takeshi right after he fucked.
Right.
Like
right
immediately.
after.
Instant after. Like,
The afterglow.
Takeshi post-effort.
There you... Why is Dad so sweaty? Nah, well,
He was just
we
like
fucked
that.
in a jellyfish.
He's just a sweaty boy. And
Supposed to do it in the Cosmic Rail Room here.
He looks
in
really
London, but
calm.
still.
So, you know, that whole thing happened.
Yeah.
And so she burns into the hologram pendant. We see the hologram pendant. And in that moment, we perspective switch to Hokuto with the hologram pendant. And so at this point, Kid realizes that Hokuto realizes that Takeshi and Tsugumi must be his parents, and flips out because there's a Takeshi right here also. With Hokuto, there's another Takeshi, and what?
Right.
And he rushes to the security room where Yu tells him plainly that the year is 2034. And then we, in that exact moment, Fall Yu says it's 2034. We perspective switch to Spring Yu telling Takeshi that it's 2017.
Yep.
And then...
And I just want to say, like, the plot is coming fast and furious.
Yeah, there's so much.
And she's like, no, he goes, it's 2017. So 2013 was 4 years ago? Which is like, oh, come on, let's not go. All right, anyway.
There's a lot. So we got Takeshi and Sugumi had children, and those children are older kid Hokuto and Sarah Mayo, and this is happening. So we know that Takeshi's timeline happened first and Kid's timeline happened second. But why? We don't know. So Spring Yu is telling Takeshi that it's 2017. She said that she has a terminal heart condition, she describes it as a condition that she was not born with, but rather acquired after she was born, which we did look up, and that is a real thing.
Yeah, it's an actual thing.
Like viral.
Even though they don't describe it at all.
Yeah, viral cardiomyopathy is a thing, and then there's also just any disease that runs rampant for long enough will mess up your body pretty good.
So Yu says that when she was diagnosed with this in the hospital, she met a man, a scientist named Shigezo Marino, and he was like a father to her and was like a mentor to her when she was 14 years old, and asked her to come to his lab and basically convince her. And he's like, there's three kinds of immortality. There's physical immortality, there's like mental or like memory-based immortality, and then there's genetic immortality. How would you like to have your own self as a clone baby? Then it'll be like, you didn't die of this heart condition, he said to a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, how would you like to get pregnant with yourself?
And then that's what happened.
Yeah, then she was like, okay,
had
yeah,
her
sure.
own self as a clone baby. So Fall Yu gave birth to Spring Yu when she was 14, which is fucking anime. But okay, sure.
In real life, too, don't you need, like, what am I trying to say here? Don't you need, like, I don't know, a whole nother set of gametes or whatever it is? Don't you need, like, you can't just clone you can clone yourself, but, like, I don't know, like, how is she getting an egg to implant into her uterus and all that stuff?
I don't
That's
think
what
that's
I'm
how
not
it worked
following.
when they cloned the sheep. I think they just did it with the sheep DNA.
Oh. Alright, but, alright, okay, I guess alright. Well, you win this round, Ever 17, okay.
You know, I wouldn't think too hard on it.
Yeah.
This is a weird thing that's happening.
That's fair.
And so then we get a little more insight into Takeshi's timeline. Spring Yu had left Fall Yu, who is currently a small child, with her own mother, Yuki Tanaka, before going to investigate her father's death. Spring Yu explains that she doesn't regret having a baby and that she loves the baby, who's her daughter, her twin, and also herself. And
the way she put it, it was like, after I had her, I basically became nothing, and she became me.
Yeah, and so I guess that also kind of implies, but I don't think we really see it confirmed, like, explicitly, that Spring Yu basically pretended to be her own mother, Yuki Tanaka, to Fall Yu. Because Fall Yu is also looking to figure out her father's disappearance, the same story. So she believes that the same thing happened to her, I guess.
Well, I don't know if we know that yet. Because
we don't know explicitly.
Yeah.
Like they haven't. But she does say the same thing.
Yeah.
Both Yus say they're looking to explain their father's disappearance.
Exactly, and like we know that she left her with her mother, and that something happened afterwards.
Yeah. So it also gives credence to Spring Yu being the woman we see on screen that communicates with them during Yu's ending on Kid's path. And also, so the baby pictures that Takeshi sees Spring Yu showing to Coco were not her baby pictures, but rather her young daughter, Fall Yu. So,
and they show a picture, and she has an actual bib that says "you" on it.
yeah. So
Anyway, all right. I'm sorry. I
she's
just
a
wanted to throw
baby.
that out there.
She's a little baby. So then, we switch perspectives back to Hokuto, who is speaking with Fall Yu.
Right.
And yeah, it's unclear. Yeah, I mean, I think it's still pretty unclear if Spring Yu is Fall Yu's it acted as Fall Yu's mother, or if if her mom is her mom, or if her grandma is her mom. We don't know exactly, but he's so Kid is speaking with Fall Yu. Then he leaves and brings Mayo and Sugumi into the whale room to speak privately. So he's had this realization, and Kid lights the pendant up and says, "The real Takeshi Kurinari is right here." And Sugumi breaks down. She denies it at first, but then she finally admits that she is, in fact, their mother, that she abandoned them when they were born. She sent them to an orphanage when they were born. Everybody hugs and cries, and Sugumi explains their whole life story up until they were in the orphanage.
And what's throwing me too, by the way, is that I feel like Mayo and Hokuto are a lot younger in the picture where Sugumi is crying than anywhere else.
Yeah. I kind of got the impression that it was sort of a metaphorical illustration, that they felt like they were children again, like younger children again, like running back to their mother's arms.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also, a weird thing that may just be a translation error again, but in the beginning when we switch back to Kid, the explanation we get from you is that he never thought this could happen because of the date order. And she's like, "Oh, the Japanese order is year, month, day, and the German is day, month, month,
year.
Day, year." And that's actually totally inaccurate, because German is actually day, month, year, not month, day, year. That's the American way.
Well. Anyway, does anybody in particular want to talk about the story of Sugumi and her children?
It's actually they go into a lot of detail. It's really sad.
Perhaps too much, but you know.
I mean, it's like a little mini novella almost. But after she and Takeshi had sex on the gondola, it was discovered at one point that she had the cure virus, and I think this may have been the first instance of them knowing it. And she had to run, to avoid the Lieblich, laboratory guys. And then she went out into the city and gave birth, and she had to constantly be on the run because Lieblich was after her. And, she wasn't, the age that they had wouldn't match up with her appearance, so they would, know it was her, and Lieblich had all these ties with, police and national governments and whatnot, so they basically got her number, and she can't stay in one place for too long. She eventually gives birth to the twins, and she kind of starts to have sort of a normal life where she works this really tough job at a sewing factory from early in the morning to 5 at night. And she's really happy with the kids. She's happy for probably the first time, and then her life becomes all about the kids. And then eventually she gets found by the Lieblich people, and she realizes, okay, I can't keep doing this. The kids aren't going to be happy always having to run away from these guys. They're not going to have a normal life. They're not going to be able to go to school or anything. So she decides to drop them off at an orphanage, and then just goes back to running. And she eventually goes back to see if they're still there, but of course they're not. And then from that point on, she becomes the way we see her in later playthroughs, where she's just very cold and very distant.
That'll do it, to be fair.
And
Yeah.
it also just specific. So she goes and she has a lot of correspondence with this illegal doctor, which is a really funny way of translating that. But she talks to this illegal doctor, and who specifically like knows about the cure virus, and we don't really know who he is. He's not named, but he's like, your children are hybrid cure humans, so they are not going to be immortal, but they have some aspects of cure in them. So it's not really explained further than that.
Yeah, it goes into like genetics where Takeshi was like a pure regular person.
For the record, I don't know if there's an amount of DNA you could rewrite once a person is already alive that would change their species. I don't think that's how that works.
I think it kind of ties into the whole...
I think then that's just you have defined a new thing a species can do. Like, that's a new thing. It'd be like, I don't know, if a cucumber just magically turned into a purple cucumber, you'd just be like, hey, some of the cucumbers turned purple. That's fucked up. But, like, it would still be a cucumber. I don't know. That bothered me.
Yeah. I almost feel like Lieblich called them a subspecies of humans specifically to dehumanize them so they could study them.
I think it goes into like the thing where they say it takes 5 years for your cells to regenerate, and at that point none of their original cells, like the original 100% human cells, would still exist. So at that point we
classify things based on their cells, though.
Yeah.
I think we base it on whether
in visual
or not
novels
they have
we
ears
do,
that
buddy.
are pointy or round, or if their tails wag left to right or up and down. If they have feathers or if they have fur. That's how etymology works. You can be sure.
This is a doctor's
Wow.
Last important takeaway, Sarah and Hokuto are not their birth names, but we do not get to hear what their birth names are.
Yep.
So that will surely happen later. So at that point, Hokuto Kid remembers getting a call from Lemieux, and he's and that it said, if you come to Lemieux, you can see your mother and sister again. So the people he must have been waiting for on the bench at the beginning of the game must have been Tsugumi and Sarah. I also sort of took that to also mean that Tsugumi might have infiltrated Lemieux in the lemur costume in order to see her children also. Kid at this moment then remembers the voice on the phone, and he goes, but the voice on the phone had been Takeshi's voice? So he runs to his Takeshi,
Right.
the Takeshi in Hokuto's timeline, and confronts him, this second fake Takeshi. And he responds basically like, how could you know these things? Who like, he's basically like, what you're talking about, like, that this has happened twice, that like I'm fake, like who are you that you know these things?
Right, because chronologically he shouldn't have known anything from the previous time because he would have been born after
Yeah.
that.
And this Takeshi, in Kid's timeline, is not the Takeshi that we play as, and in fact is a different person named Ryogo Kaburaki. At this point, we flash back to Takeshi's perspective, talking to the Kid in his timeline, and Kid says, I just remembered my name, it's Ryogo Kaburaki. So the Kid from the first timeline is Takeshi in the second timeline.
Thank God!
Also,
Yep.
for the record, this explains very clearly why, upon seeing Ryo, we now know, upon seeing Ryo, Tsugumi immediately punches him in the head. Like, while she's still in the lemur costume. It makes perfect sense now. 'Cause she's just like, what are you doing here, motherfucker? Like, who are you? Why are you here? And just, like, fucking, like, decks him one, which is beautiful. We imagine there's probably some stuff that has occurred between then and now that maybe would make her not a fan of what he's done.
Yep.
So just to summarize, just between what's going on here, again, 2017, we play as Takeshi. There's the Kid, who's really Ryogo, who then is impersonating or being an imposter for... Well, I guess that's not really true either. He's calling himself Takeshi in the Kid's route in 2034. it's the same person. That, right? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and we don't know why yet.
Right.
So
It's always the one you don't play as is the same person.
yeah.
Like he's
So
kidding-
the person. So I was relieved because this basically means that the person we've hated this whole game has actually been just one guy.
Right.
Same person.
Ryogo Kaburaki.
Yes.
Yeah, so Takeshi Route Takeshi, aka competent, good at things, like occasionally a dumbass, but kind of a heroic dumbass,
Yep.
Takeshi.
Yep.
And then Kid's Route, big, dumb, idiot, never does anything right Takeshi, are two different people, and also means Takeshi's Route Kid, who's a big dumbass and falls over and gets hurt and just runs around like a big idiot the whole time, and Kid's Route Takeshi, who acts like a big idiot and gets hurt and runs around and wastes everybody's time and get punched in the face, are the same person. It's perfect.
Yep.
That is, I love it.
So yeah, so then we see the scene where Ryogo carves. He goes to carve on the statues, just like in the rest area, just like Coco carved on the statues, and he carves everyone's name in characters. Carves their name on the statues. He carves all the names just like Coco carved all the pictures, and then he looks at all the statues, and they all have Coco's stick figure drawing. All of them have that in their back. So that was a moment there.
Except
so
one has a
something
list of names,
converged.
right?
Yeah, the one that he carved has a list of names, and the other three
Yeah.
have the pictures.
Or wasn't it two had pictures and one was blank?
One
or
was
that a
blank.
different
Oh
time?
yeah, one was blank. Yeah, two
Yeah.
have pictures, one's names, and one is blank. Don't know why, but there it is. The timelines have converged. So that was really all we got. We just are like, oh, that's the same guy, and we switch back to Hokuto, who at that moment remembers Ryogo, at that moment he disappears. Kaburaki disappears, and Hokuto goes to look. Yeah, he goes and looks at all the carvings. All the carvings are there. He remembers that. He recalls. I don't know if how explicitly they say this, but in my notes I have that he recalls that yes, the Yu's mother he had met was Spring Yu. So he explicitly recalls that.
He knows that three
and
people survived the 2017 incident.
Yeah. So the surviving members of the 2017 incident are Spring Yu, Sugumi, and Kaburaki. Ryogo
Right.
Kaburaki. So and then he also ascertains that Spring Yu and Kaburaki must have gotten the cure virus from the injection from Sugumi's blood, freezing them in place 5 years later, which is why they don't look 17 years older, they only look 5 years older.
Right.
So who's behind the second incident, or even the first one? Why can the kid sense this across time? Kid knows that he has to find Coco, who is the key to answering all this. So holy crap, it's all happening, folks. Everything's happening. We switch perspectives again to Takeshi, who is talking to Coco in the Cosmic Whale Room.
Right.
Coco is explaining her powers more explicitly to Takeshi, and she says, if I borrow the sight from the people in the other world, I can see everything from the past and future. So she's claiming that she can see through the eyes of people from the fourth dimension, which I guess would be Lemurians? Solarians?
Or just people across different points in time.
Yeah. It's
Or a
not
fourth
it's not clear
dimensional
if
layer.
Coco's perception of what her powers are her actual perception, because we know that she's communicating across time, but she seems to be more like I'm communicating between dimensions. Switch back.
And she's
now
really
we're
dumb,
we're still in the Cosmic Whale Room. We're Hokuto talking to Coco. Coco can't help Kid figure out his past because he isn't Hokutan. He's, quote, perspective itself. So she's sort of
perception.
speaking more to him. Yeah, perception itself. So she's sort of speaking that there's two people in your body, and the one that is speaking to me is I can't help you. and she mentions again that name, Blickwinkle.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
like an-
Winkle.
Do we know who that is? I don't.
Nope.
I don't think we do.
We do not.
It got.
Yeah.
Who's
I think it got
Blickwinkle?
mentioned.
Which, God, the entire time that whole discussion coming up of like, I see through multiple dimensions and all this stuff, like, all I could think about, because like all that stuff bores the shit out of me. I was just trying to think, who benefits from this happening a second time? Because Ryogo is too goddamn stupid to be running this show, and that's obvious. Like, but that means he was hired by somebody to oversee, to make sure the same shit happened twice. So somebody wants this to go down again.
And I feel like it has to be at least partially Spring U, but I don't know why.
And I also feel like it might be Lieblich to a certain extent, because they do want, like, I mean, shit, you accidentally just poop out a psychic and a hacking wizard. Like, okay, yeah, let's try that again. You know, let's see if we can find out how that happened so that we then can abuse the hell out of this for business reasons or something. That's what I care about right now, is like, someone orchestrated something real bananas twice and managed to cover up that it happened the first time, which is already crazy. So, like, who's that? Is that Blickwinkle? That's what I'm concerned with. All the dimension talking can... whatever. Tertiary. Tell me the business.
It's Shigeru Miyamoto.
That's the part, this is the part that really I don't have high hopes for in the eventual explanation. Like, why? I don't know,
Right.
we'll see. So, the Cosmic Whale Room. They're in the Cosmic Whale Room on the 6th day. The Cosmic Whale Room starts to flood. You think something interesting is going to happen, but no, Hokuto just runs out of that room before it floods, so don't worry. Hokuto runs out in the hallway and Sarah's there. The others are running up to the room to see what had happened, that it had flooded. On the way out, Hokuto cuts his hand. He gets and he's like looking at the blood bleeding out of his hand. He gets caught up in the name Blickwinkle, and everything goes red. And then we get the title card that it's the 6th day.
Right. And this is.
And then it's red, but the text box is still blue, which is Kid's text box color. And he's like, I'm a perception, simply watching things take place. And then suddenly we flash to when Coco was bleeding from being infected by Tief Blau. And basically, it's still Kid's dialogue boxes, so we're watching Takeshi's story from the third person. We're not playing as Takeshi. We're playing as Hokuto, or the thing that's in Hokuto, watching Takeshi's story take place.
Yeah.
So because we are in this perspective, we see Takeshi from the third person now instead of through his eyes.
Right.
So Takeshi appears, and it's the real Takeshi, the man that was in the pendant, who is wearing the same clothes as the Takeshi we don't know and dislike. But he has black hair that's been like brushed forward in that way that is very like the time that it was made. The way that everybody when I was in like elementary school and middle school had their hair.
Well, to be fair, it's very wet here in Lemieux also.
Also, you mean the
But
best
more
way
importantly, he seems to have full use of both of his hands.
possible. Look, his hands aren't stuck behind his head. It's amazing. It's a miracle. It's a Christmas
Oh,
miracle,
man.
everybody.
I already love him. He's great. So, and at this point, if we didn't realize, which I didn't realize until this point, I was like, oh shit, we never saw ourselves as Takeshi either.
Right.
So, but at this point, we're playing as neither Takeshi nor Hokuto.
Well, and to be totally fair, like, the kids not seeing him, well, Hokuto not seeing himself is kind of, like, stupid because it's like, you would have seen a reflection. It's a big plot point. But Takeshi, it's, like, revealed to the player. Like, there's no reason that he would look at a reflection and be like, holy shit, that's not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and
we're
on top
tricked.
of that, it was kind of well done in the fact that, like, when it's still not super clear, like, is it the same timeline? Is it parallel timelines? Like, whatever. You see Takeshi, so you just assume it's the same Takeshi, and he's, like, dressed the same and shit. So you're kind of like, yeah, it's probably the same guy. And it never occurs to you to think maybe it's someone else impersonating him.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good twist.
It comes
And
completely
they're
out of left
wearing-
field.
They're wearing the same clothes, and in the scenes where Sugumi is like on top of Takeshi, we only see him from like the nose down. So we don't see his hair or his face or anything. So it's not revealed that he's black hair Takeshi, real Takeshi.
I like how the game did this. It's just these little tiny camera tricks and lies of omission to just not even, make you think about the possibility.
I think this was done well versus the Hokuto seeing his own reflection was maybe not done as well. I think you could have just changed a little bit where in that moment he like remembered the other kid or something like that and remembered Kaburaki and what Kaburaki looked like or something like that that could have sort of like more easily sidestepped the idea that he probably could have been looking at himself the whole time, but only at this moment did he realize that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are two it's good examples of like how that can be handled versus how it can be a little clumsy.
Yeah.
Right.
And it seems like they did try to handle it very clumsily in the initial runs where they're like, oh, every time you try to think about yourself, or every time you try to think about who your name is and all this kind of stuff, you're going to pass out. Which is just obvious and a little too heavy-handed. It could have been a much more subtle effect of just, hey, I need to focus on what I need to do and get through this. And they never kind of like emphasized that versus just pass out when you think about yourself.
Yeah, I think it could have used a little more editing with the same idea getting across. But so we go through the whole scene where they go down to IBF to treat Coco. That scene plays out, except this time we see Takeshi from the third-person perspective as he talks to everybody. The scene plays out as normal, except... And this is another thing where it's like, oh, you just didn't tell this to us the first time, but now you're telling it to us.
Right.
In the note from Koko Yagami's father, we find out that her father's name is Takeshi Yagami. So... her and Takeshi's, so her father and Takeshi have the same name, which is why she might have been like calling him daddy because she missed her dad, and they have the same name. Also, the note says, it seems like T.Y.'s daughter is working part-time at Lemieux. I'm still not sure if I should tell him or ellipsis. And so T.Y.'s daughter, so Takeshi Yagami's daughter, which is Coco, or
Right.
Tanaka Yoichi's daughter, which would be you. So it's not clear because, like, did they, is this... Because one of them is TY and one of them is YT, if you're talking about the English name order. But we don't
Right.
know, really. It could be Tanaka Yoichi, and that's, like, meant to be ambiguous, because you is the daughter that's working part-time. We don't know that Coco is working part-time at Lemieux. Also, it didn't seem like she was. And also, it also speaks more toward, when they find the researcher who is some, when they find the guy in the Himmel room, they're like, who is this guy? And Sora's like, he's not in my records. I don't know who he is. Could that be Yu's father who was like scrubbed from the record back then?
Yep. Yeah,
Because
then
Koko
there's-
Yagami's father, Takeshi Yagami, she would be able to identify him because he was currently working there. So I don't know.
Although,
maybe
when she was drugged down there after she started getting sick, she was unconscious. So it could be that it was him, but she just wasn't awake for it.
yeah, he could have. I think it's been more heavily implied that the researcher that they find is Coco's dad, but just the fact that Sora couldn't identify him makes it seem like maybe there is an argument for him possibly being Yu's dad. It's not clear.
Yeah, because there's no way we know which one he is based on what we've experienced, because we just don't know.
And so, but we go through the whole scenario. The whole scene plays out the same as it did before. They like go and explore the area while Yu stays with the man while they're in the pods. And she talks more about how, she talked to the man before he died. He helped make Himmel, Lemmy, and Sora. She also is like, oh, when he's talking about his children or his daughter, he could be talking about Sora because he is a programmer, which is a little bit of a stretch, but there are many potential daughters that this man could have. And also, if he worked on Himmel, Lemmy, and Sora, that's also more evidence that he could be Yu's father. Because you specifically said that her father worked on Lemmy and then disappeared. Right. So that everything is. So meanwhile, Takeshi and Tsugumi are searching the area. They end up in the submarine room, and at that moment, they both turn and look at us, the player. And the narration, who is theoretically Hokuto or the person inside Hokuto, says that they were looking at me. So they both turn and look at us, the player, and then they're like, "Oh no, never mind. I just thought I saw something."
Ever get the feeling you was being watched?
That's all that happens. They all get infected with TB, just like before. They have to make a serum out of Sugumi's blood. The dialogue changed a little bit about Tsugumi being immune and revealing that she's Kirei and that whole thing. Like it plays out a little bit differently, although it's essentially the same thing. Instead of you looking up that Tsugumi is Kirei on the computer, she says that she heard about Kirei from
Shigeru Miyamoto.
Shigeru Miyamoto,
Yep.
the scientist that helped her back in the day, back in the hospital when she had herself as a clone baby. And then Tsugumi talks about the reason that she came to Lemieux the first time, so in Takeshi's timeline, pre-pregnancy, the reason that she's there in the first place was to find out more about their research and the nature of her existence. So we have Tsugumi's motive for the first time, and I guess theoretically the second time, where she must have been there to rescue her children. We black out. There's to the scene where Takeshi and Tsugumi are together after they just had sex. I guess it's just dark, and
in the gondola.
He's in the gondola. We're in the gondola, and he says he won't let anyone die, reassuring Tsugumi, who had said that she wanted to die. So he's I don't know why we flash back to that part. Well, I guess because they're talking about having the injections and everything. And so they're about to give themselves the injections. We go back to IBF, where Takeshi is there, and he says, "It's time for desperate measures."
And that's where we stopped.
Yeah. So let's recap the final fates of everyone from the 2017 incident. So the kid Kaburaki lived, stopped aging from the cure injection, and is the Takeshi of the second timeline, the 2034 event.
Dumbass equals
Spring
dumbass.
Yu. Dumbass equals dumbass.
Transitive
Spring Yu
property.
lived, stopped aging from the cure injection, and then raised Fall Yu. Tsugumi lived, had Takeshi's children, and returned to Lemieux in 2034 to find her own children. Takeshi got Tsugumi pregnant, died. Maybe.
I think we know who the real winner here. Nice.
Sora has not been important in a long time, and I'm starting to get really suspicious. Sora, unclear. It's unclear what ending, if Sora's data was saved or not between 2017 and 2034. We know in one of Takeshi's endings it is in fact saved, so I assume that this has probably happened.
I think it's going to be saved.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be one of those instances of it's all the good endings happening simultaneously, canonically.
Well,
my thing is that she's just a ghost in the machine.
Well, there's another thing too that Coco had mentioned, because she started saying earlier to Hokuto something like, "You know all this," and then she starts listing IBF, a couple of things, and she mentions the terabyte disk, which I thought was weird, but I guess has to refer to that because that's the only terabyte disk we've seen. But
So then Coco's ultimate fate, we know Coco did not receive the Cure injection, and it is unclear currently if she was truly taken out of the pod because Takeshi dies at the end. So we're never physically there with her when they all get saved. But
Maybe
theoretically she
Kid
got
is
taken
such
out
a-
and was saved.
Maybe that's why Kid Ryogo is such a shitty wiener, because he was really distraught, like when he was little,
Yeah.
when he was
Yeah.
younger, when Coco was locked in the pod. Like he's genuinely pretty upset. So maybe that's why he's such a big wiener. Maybe something happened with that. Maybe Coco was down in the pod and they were trying to like force that as a bargaining chip to like go get her out or something. That could be a thing. Who
I
knows?
think
Maybe
that
there's
might be-
noble goals at the end of this dipshit's journey.
Could they
Gotta
have
hope so.
staged a second incident just to get Coco out of the pod? Are there not easier ways to get Coco out of the pod?
Here's what I think.
There's a big pot of cocoa at the end of this dipshit rainbow. I can't wait.
I think that
Oh my god, if this was all
After-
orchestrated by that stupid moron, I'm gonna be so pissed.
oh god. I think that after the first event, he comes out a little bit traumatized and then comes back. And I think, I'm not going to say orchestrated, but I think he's involved with this somehow because he knows that Sora's not going to let them go down to the lower level until something bad happens. So
Well, like,
in order
I
to
know
get
he's
down to
involved.
that lab, I think that they have to recreate the events to get her out.
Oh, so wait, they have to re-trigger Sora?
They have to re-trigger the whatever flag is in Sora that allows them to know about the underground laboratory and let her, for her to
Like
let
it
them
being
go
dangerous
to it.
enough
Yeah.
to let them down
That would
there.
imply, though, that they're not working with Lieblich. And
But-
I don't know, because Fall Yu says that her mom, Spring Yu, works for Lieblich and is a researcher of the third eye, and I think that's talking about Spring Yu and not their mom.
And it sounds
Yuki.
way too sloppy of an idea
But-
for it to just be like, all four of these events happen to happen at the same time. What the? Like, that's like it's a little
But-
much.
Is it bad then in Kid's timeline that they fucked with Sora's priorities? Because if the plan is to get Sora to let them into IBF, then it's probably not great that off script from Ryogo or whoever, Yu is trying to get into things with Mayo and Sora and Kid.
Well,
You know what I
Takeshi
mean?
wasn't around for that too, right?
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And like,
Yeah.
he might have been pretty pissed off about that in general, and that would also explain why. Can't remember who went off about it when they were like late or whatever when they showed up the one day, and someone just sassed, or it was probably Sugumi since she's the one who knows and is aware of it, who just kind of gave him a, "Oh, it's wrong. I messed up your schedule, idiot. It's wrong.
Yeah,
There you
Sugumi does
go.
that to him. Yeah.
That's
You
right.
fuck up your schedule, pretty boy." I'm just like, oh, goddamn. Yeah, that's why. Is because she obviously knows he's trying to impersonate her fucking husband, or not husband, but her
fucking
Yeah, no, I know what you
husband.
mean.
Yeah.
yeah,
Her
Love.
literal
Gondola
fucking
fuck
husband.
Also, why did Kaburaki have amnesia?
Yeah, none of this makes
Why
any
does
sense.
and he doesn't have
No.
amnesia now? Like maybe the cure injection cured his amnesia brain.
But also,
problems.
why would Kaburaki not understand that there's this other dude taking his place in the new timeline who has some weird ass amnesia for no fucking reason at all? Like, why would
Well,
he
I mean,
be fucking with him the whole time?
Obviously the events are being set up and or forced and or kind of tricked into being played out the same way by someone.
Somebody drugged
and,
Hokuto.
Yeah.
and it's
And
someone.
I think it's the ice cream.
It's someone
I think
that
it's the ice
Ryogo. It's someone
Yeah.
that Ryogo
The
has
ice cream.
shared interests with. It is either Ryogo himself doing this, or it is someone who Ryogo is working with. Clearly, Ryogo is not on the level with this whole situation.
Like, he's
I
not
think
telling us
Spring
everything.
He's well aware.
Nope. Yeah, totally.
Spring Yu has already demonstrated that she's willing to do some real fucked up shit. So I think that she is much more likely to be the mastermind than Ryogo Kaburaki. But yeah, they must be working together.
Or there's somebody we
And
don't
also-
know yet, like Shigeru
Also, there's the
Miyamoto.
circumstances.
Oh
There's
yeah,
the
it was
circumstances-
Winkle, of course.
Yeah, who's Blinkwinkle? There's the circumstances under which Yoichi Tanaka disappeared. Which almost could imply that this happened a first time prior to the times that we played. That's something that has something to do, because we still haven't had any sort of resolution of what happened to Yoichi Tanaka.
A first time before we played that seems like a bit of a stretch. Because, like, come on, we're trying to
both
save
times-
from the TB virus, I'm assuming.
Yeah, but in both times, in both times, everyone's questioning why the systems are down in such a way that they can't get out when it seems like they should be able to get out. Like, the doors won't open, the hatch won't open when it should open, but the communication, like, that happens in both timelines.
I get
But also,
the
one
inability.
incident might explain why the first time it all goes down, Sora is willing to release the lock on the Himmel door when stuff starts getting real dangerous. Like, it actually, she lets them out that way because the second time, depending on the way her learning AI works, it may recognize as this isn't actually a real threat that's occurring. There's something going on. Like, this is some kind of falsification. If she talks about, like, learning to analyze lies and learning to figure out what's not true, if that was the case, there might be some kind of routine that picks up on, this isn't right. This is wrong. I can't let them into Himmel for this. Like, I'm keeping that locked. We're going a different way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another question that I have still is, when in Kids Root, when they get communications in, and there's Spring U who comes in through on the comms, and there's also a man there, and I wonder if that man is Shigeru Miyamoto, the doctor that was Yu's mentor. Maybe she, like, joined him in his fucked up Lieblich research. I don't know. That's, like, the only other character, the only other name that we have that might be that person.
Yep.
We still don't know who we're playing as, who is in Takeshi and Hokuto. I feel like it's not impossible, but it's probably not Takeshi both times, right? Like, because I was, like, waiting for, like, Takeshi's ghost to be present in the second timeline, because he's like, no, I'm not gonna die, I'll be back. That it's like, but if that was the case, then he wouldn't be watching himself in the third person.
No.
So it's somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance we are Takeshi. This seems that's a little bit too much of pushing the whole idea of what we're doing here.
Well,
Takeshi may
I mean,
show up again,
Hokuto-
but I don't think he's gonna be like us.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, Hokuto, I guess Hokuto's our best bet for who we are, or some variation of him. But, I mean, I can't figure out Coco's deal in all this. Because if we're going back for Coco, why does Lieblich want her? Or is she doing this somehow because she's, like, cryogenically frozen but able to, like, go through dimensions, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm kind of, like, stuck.
Yeah,
I'm
and also keep
thinking
in mind
that-
that May 6th, the delineation that we have for what's happening now at the second to last day in Coco's timeline is we never experienced Coco. She's passed out, and that's it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And then she's just not there. She only appears, like, kind of ephemerally in the second timeline, and only then, like, on day 1 and day...
I think that's her
4.
reaching out from her own time period that she's in to a different time from before, when she, before she got frozen.
Oh.
So it's like
I
she is in her own timeline, but she has access to, like, the past and future in some ways.
Oh, hold on. Hokuto broke his arm then, right?
Oh, yeah, because, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Idiot who broke his arm off screen. Yeah.
I was hoping we could pin that one on Ryogo, too.
Nope.
Yeah, it's all
still-
second kid.
All right. Damn it.
Yeah.
Well,
but he also
maybe we
he's a
could.
half cure. He's half cure. So does he have a healing factor? Is that what that is implying? Because he breaks his arm and then we're just like, no, everything's fine.
And then Ryogo gives the serum, like the magical fix your arm shot. He probably did that to keep him from getting suspicious.
Oh,
You know-
yeah, because he's like, oh no, it's just a pain medication.
Yeah,
maybe
that's-
he does have a healing factor.
that's, to keep him from knowing he has the healing
Yeah,
factor,
so he
right.
gives him the injection to just says that it'll help you fix your arm up when he knows that he actually has a healing factor.
It's funny, like, I wouldn't, but I almost kind of want to redo Takeshi, or the kid's route again to kind of see Takeshi doing stuff with this information.
Yeah. The whole
Yeah.
Kaburaki as Takeshi is... Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Let's Play is good for it, so there is that. Wow. Well, I mean, this is theory time because next episode we're gonna be done with the game. It's the true ending coming up. So if you have any more theories, or questions or whatever, now's the time. But if not,
I wonder if we're going to hear about the origins of Tief Blau and Cure, and if these fourth dimensional beings, the Lemurians or Solarians or whatever, if any of those people are real, or if they've just been a metaphorical explanation for the capabilities of the existing characters. Like, are we playing as a third party from Takeshi and Hokuto, or are we playing as Hokuto? Like, what's going on with that? I
Right.
feel like I'm going back to that picture from the handbook where there's a weird stretchy person with long hair who's hovering over Sugumi and Coco. I wonder who that person is, if that person is a Lemurian, and what
The
their
only
deal
thing I would
is.
hate about the whole we're playing as a separate entity, the thing that would make me really hate that is we make choices for the characters, and since they just kind of accept them and move on, that would kind of drive me nuts. I understand it's like, well, it's a visual novel, they have to do that. Well, then don't write that, I guess. So I'm hoping they don't do that. I could see it, but I'm hoping that's wrong.
But I believe we know how I'm hoping, and it's that it is Shigeru Miyamoto.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you hope it like the time loop ends up stabilizing, but only in the gondola.
No, I was really hoping it was just Shigeru Miyamoto. Just like, hey,
Just
time
just
to
like
invent
the real
Nintendo.
Takeshi getting laid by a vampire forever, 100 years. My boy.
I hope that Takeshi comes back. I hope that he comes
I
back.
really do, because he's the only cool guy we got in
family.
this. Like, nobody else is
Yeah.
cool. Takeshi, if he had advanced through and been like the guy who saved like his true love, like realized he was
Right.
a dumbass and like finally figured it out at the end. I don't want that guy to die. I want that guy to
I also
come
like
back.
how Hokuto obviously inherited his father's ability to have two love interests at once. Except one of them ended up being his sister, which is unfortunate.
Well, to be
Well,
fair,
I mean, one of them ended up being an AI.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oops.
It's the same.
Maybe we can hold out hope for Takeshi being a dumbass, and really the way he had it was he had a copy of Sora, faked his death to Sugumi so she could raise the kids on her own, and he could be with the AI girlfriend. Bang.
Just gotta hold out till
My
she
boy.
has a workable vagina.
That's what makes him come back in 2034. It takes him 17 years to realize, oh wait, the technology's not here for this. I gotta meet Sugumi again.
Takeshi,
I'm an idiot.
the player beyond time.
The ladies' man time forgot.
Here, now, wherever you go, I know that my play will go on.
Oh my god.
Oh my
so
god.
this is like a whole thing. Everyone's fucking related to everyone. It's weird. It's a weird reveal thing that I was,
I like it though. I like that. Like
For
everybody like
Takeshi
has a
Who's
through
separate
line.
from everything. Fucking yeah, Takeshi won.
Again, he's
Only-
the odd man out. Everyone in the original playthrough has some sort of relation to each other, except Takeshi, who was just
And that's
some
why
dumb
he's
kid
the
that was
best.
there.
Yeah, and then he's just the best because of it. Everyone's got some fucking ulterior motive, and he's just like, I just want to get the fuck up out of here, cuz. This sucks. I want to go. And then he ends up falling in love, which is unfortunate, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and he dies.
He was there to just meet up with his friends, including the person who liked knitting.
Oh, that guy, that one guy. With
Where's
the
that guy?
Somewhere.
Where's his friend with the knitting hands? We'll never know. Maybe that was a reference to a different visual novel.
Oh yeah, that's right. It might. Well, I mean, Never Seven was the previous one, so maybe it is that. I never thought of that, but
Oh man. So yeah, it's weird. This been like all the plot has happened now. Some of it has I think been a successful reveal, and then some of it has been like, okay, you just haven't told me this the whole time. You could have told it earlier. Like it doesn't really make sense that we wouldn't know this by now, kind of thing. It's the whole game though has been kind of a mixed bag like that, where like characters don't always behave logically or ask the questions that we would expect them to ask, in favor of some dramatic reveal. But other times the reveal was really successful. I think the Takeshi reveal was very smooth and successful in that way. The kid reveal, not so much.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So next we're gonna finish the game.
Yep, next week's the end.
Should we place bets
Sega.
on if the kid is the orchestrator or not?
Oh, we should.
No, I think it's you.
I'm gonna say it's Ryogo.
I can't say because I kind of know.
I'm gonna go with it's not Ryogo. It's Liebling
What are we betting on?
using Ryogo.
Who's the mastermind?
Blickwinkle.
Who's Blickwinkle?
The mastermind, I just said it.
If it's Blickwinkle, like we've heard his name all of 2 times, and I think that's gonna be really disappointing because it's like, oh, it was actually this other asshole that you never heard
Just
of
some
before.
hillbilly
We've
that
gotta
lives
do
there.
like 10 more years of plot dump in order to explain. And like, think about all the hard work that everyone had to go through without a guide to get all 4 of these all 4 good endings, and how many bad endings you got in between then. And to absorb all the 4 paths, and then you get there and it's like, nah, it was Blickwinkle.
Fucking Blickwinkle.
I gotta be perfectly
kind of
honest.
unsatisfying.
From everything I've learned about what's his face who wrote all this stuff, it's completely possible.
It is. That's
Takumi
the bad part.
Nakazawa. Yeah, this is totally possible.
It's true.
Who do
Embracing
you
myself.
think did it, audience? Go over your notes.
I almost want to like release my notes because there's so many of them.
Oh, you should. You should publish them.
I actually
And they're
wrote notes.
funny.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should.
No,
I actually
totally.
wrote notes for the
Definitely.
first time tonight, and I got like Tsugumi plus Takeshi Classic equals Mayo and New Kid.
Yep.
Nice.
What are their true names? What do their true names have to do with anything?
Yeah. This is all totally
Well,
possible.
Well,
Anyway,
join us next time when we finish the game, and possibly this season of Visual Novel Book Club. Take it easy.
See ya.